I used to be a proud pauper, all I wanted was Kevin's love. But after he blacklisted me once, I learned my lesson and obediently accepted the resources he offered. I just didn't love him anymore. Later, when he was hospitalized after a car accident, I had just returned from Fashion Week abroad and went straight into filming. By the time he recovered and was discharged, he pinned me against the doorframe, eyes red with emotion. I got into a car accident. I looked at him with confused eyes, staying silent. He clenched his teeth, his voice filled with unhidden grievance. Not even once did you come to see me. Chapter 01. I always knew Kevin and I came from different worlds. I kept telling myself I didn't need the resources he gave me. To me, we were just a normal couple. He was my boyfriend. I was his girlfriend. I liked him. He liked me. But in the end, he was the one who personally tore apart that illusion. On the 10th day after Kevin had me blacklisted, my agent Monica knocked on my door again, furious and fed up with me. When I opened the door, she was about to scold me, but froze when she saw how haggard I looked. Then she shut her eyes and walked in with a sigh. Selena, can't you see it now? You and Kevin don't belong in the same universe. Do you know who he is? He's the CEO of the entire corporation. And you're a celebrity with no background. She plopped down heavily on the couch, trying to reason with me. I listened blankly, pouring her a glass of water. Love? You think what you two had was love? If it were real, would he have blacklisted you with a single order? Look at you. Just look at yourself now. She pulled a mirror from her bag and forced my head down so I could see how pathetic I looked. No matter how bad it is now, was it ever worse than that day? My voice was hoarse, every word like it was being forcibly dragged out of my throat. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, expressionless. She knew I was talking about the Best Actress Award ceremony, about the viral video on the trending list, where I smiled brightly while the host read out the results. Back then, I was so confident that I would win. But in the end, it wasn't me. The camera had caught my shocked, ugly expression and blasted it across the giant screen. Even though I quickly recovered and forced a stiff smile while clapping, I was still mercilessly mocked online as someone who couldn't accept losing. Monica sighed again and went on. I told you long ago, you two were never a match. I said you should use your youth to get whatever you could from him, his resources, his connections. That was the only way to climb higher and go further. You're just a love-obsessed idiot. You never listen. You're driving me mad. Lately, with all the drinking I'd been doing, my brain felt dull. Maybe that's why I couldn't even feel the stabbing pain in my chest anymore. Kevin and I had been together since high school. In that aristocratic school filled with the stench of money, it was nearly impossible to survive without connections, even with good grades. But Kevin had carved out a space for me. Back then, at dusk, he'd sit beside me, lazily playing with my hair while I lowered my head to take notes. Then he suddenly leaned closer, his eyes burning, his smile dazzling. Top student, ever thought about falling in love? That boy with the clear, bright eyes overlapped with the man who later stared down at me in the garden, cold and distant. Selena, don't regret it. What he meant by don't regret it was what I heard when I accidentally stood behind the door, him saying that there would never be a future between us. I'd cried when I told him we were over. Back then, I foolishly tried to preserve some kind of equal relationship between us. With my ridiculous pride, he'd always say with a smile, if you need resources, just ask me. Why make things so hard on yourself? I used to hug him tightly, burying my face in his chest and poking him in protest. No way. I want to earn it on my own. That way, no one will think I'm with you for impure reasons. He would always sigh and pat my head helplessly. Now, I laughed. Tears dropped and splattered on the floor. To hell with love. That night, I returned to what we used to call home. I sat calmly on the bed, dressed in a black lace camisole. The room still looked cute, full of colors. The stuffed animals were right where I left them, quietly lying on the sofa. Every inch of this place still carried traces of our so-called affection. There were surveillance cameras in the living room. My fingerprints hadn't been erased. He knew I'd come back. Just like he once said to me, Selena, you'll regret it. He was right. I did regret it, regretted being so naive back then, thinking love had to be pure. Before long, I heard the sound of a car pulling up downstairs. By the time I snapped out of it, The bedroom door was already open. Kevin stood at the doorway in a black tailored suit, silently looking at me. My lashes trembled, and Monica's voice echoed in my ears. People in his world only ever marry their social equals. Stop dreaming about that so-called love. What even is love? Can it feed you? Can it spend money for you? He never intended to marry you. You silly girl, wake up. I bit my lip and walked toward him barefoot. Stopping in front of him, I reached up to unbutton his suit jacket. He didn't say a word, didn't stop me, just lowered his gaze and watched. Whenever we used to fight, I'd wait for him to come home and cling to him, swaying in his arms. Don't be mad anymore, okay? He was a head taller than me. I stood on my toes, struggling to take off his jacket. Then I started undoing his shirt buttons, one by one. His strong chest and defined abs were soon exposed. I looked up and met his eyes, burning with desire. I gently brushed my lips against his bare chest, then reached for his belt. His breath hitched. My body suddenly lifted. He scooped me up and gently laid me on the bed, pressing over me. He kissed my forehead and whispered in a husky voice, "No, you were wrong?" I lowered my gaze, hiding the emotions in my eyes, and softly replied, Maybe it was that obedient tone of mine that pleased him. He grabbed my hand and placed it on his belt. Feeling the cold metal, he bit my earlobe and whispered, his Adam's apple rolling, "Undo it." Chapter 02. Once everything calmed down, I lay there listening to the man's steady breathing beside me. Eyes open, I stared at the dark ceiling, then gently moved his arm off me. Finally, I shut my eyes tight. My first job after returning was an S+ level historical fantasy mega production. I sat in the RV, reading the script. I couldn't help but think, what was I being so proud about before? Back then, I always refused to please Kevin, refused to ask him for resources. Even in my rookie days, with no connections, bouncing between sets just to land tiny roles. I never thought of asking him for help. I fantasized that maybe, one day, if I had a breakout drama and rose to stardom, his family would finally see me differently. But I'd forgotten, people from wealthy families will always see me as just an actress. No matter how famous, I'd still just be a performer in their eyes. I was just a broke girl pretending to be noble. The first snow of the year came early in North City. I sat under the set tent, hugging a hand warmer, going over the script. Suddenly, Monica gasped, "Selena, look over there." I looked in the direction she pointed. Kevin, in a black overcoat, was walking toward me through the snow. The moment I saw him, I buried the indifference in my eyes and replaced it with a look of joy. I stood and ran to him. He opened his arms and hugged me tightly, smiling. I looked up, voice soft and sweet. "Didn't you say you wouldn't be back until tomorrow?" He brushed the snow from my hair and kissed the corner of my lips. "Wanted to surprise you." I just smiled and said nothing. After a while, he told me, "I'm taking you out tonight." I pulled away from his arms and said, "But usually my shoots go until midnight. And with this snowfall lately, every crew is." Before I could finish, he pinched my cheek. I already talked to the director. For a second, my mouth hung open, unable to form words. Then I smiled and nodded. "Okay, whatever you say." That night, we went to a private room. Everyone there looked familiar, people I'd met in high school, childhood friends who grew up with Kevin. Back then, I had tried everything to earn their approval, desperately hoping they'd accept me. Now, I just sat quietly by Kevin's side. I didn't bother reacting to the subtle looks they exchanged. Soon, the star of the evening arrived. A woman in a long, red custom gown walked into the room. It was Lily, the one they always called Kevin's future wife. She had gone abroad for university. She gave me a brief glance, then sat down right next to Kevin. A guy joked, "Wow, you went overseas and came back even prettier." That broke the ice, and the chatter began. Lily giggled and replied, "Oh, stop it. Don't tease me." Then she turned her head and playfully asked Kevin, "Is that true, Kevin?" I lowered my gaze, took a sip of my drink. I didn't look to see Kevin's reaction. I only heard him quietly say, "Yeah." Once all the dishes were served, I kept eating in silence. They talked about childhood memories, but I hadn't known them back then. I used to feel sad when I couldn't join their conversations or understand their inside jokes. Not anymore. Someone suddenly said. Kevin used to go on and on about how Lily could only marry him. The room fell into an eerie silence. In showbiz, I'd long learned how to dissociate, how to mentally block out words I didn't want to hear. Over time, it became second nature. Feeling the awkwardness in the room, I looked up in confusion and locked eyes with Kevin. After all these years together, I could read his emotions from even the slightest shift in his expression. He was clearly unhappy, but I didn't know why. Then Lily spoke. "Oh, come on. Don't say that. Can't you see Kevin's girlfriend is right here?" I smiled politely, glanced at Lily's face. There wasn't even a trace of apology. I felt nothing, just indifference, because I was no longer Kevin's girlfriend. I was his kept woman, a canary in a gilded cage. Love wasn't part of the deal. Back at the villa that night, Kevin had been drinking. A faint scent of alcohol clung to him. That night, he was rough, unusually so. His fox-like eyes were burning with fury. I didn't know what he was angry about. At first, I tried to match his rhythm, raising my body to meet his. But eventually, I broke down, crying and begging him to stop. Chapter 03. In the days that followed, I sent Kevin a few WeChat messages. He never replied, so I stopped bothering. I focused on filming. Since the set was far from home, I stayed in a hotel. One day, I was crouched on the ground shaping a snowman when Monica came running over in her long down coat. Totally ignoring her image, phone in hand, she shoved it toward me. The top trending headline read, "A perfect match in the world of the elite." She tapped in. The first thing I saw was a photo of a woman clinging to a man's arm. The background was luxurious, clearly from some high society gala. Lily's looks were the radiant, graceful kind. In the photo, she wore a golden gown that hugged her perfect figure. Her hair was up, her eyes soft and gentle. Kevin stood beside her in a black suit, tall and elegant. The corners of his mouth curled in the faintest smile. I smiled and said, "They do look good together." I looked away. Without me in the picture, they would have been a beautiful love story. But even with or without me, they were always going to end up together. Just like in those novels where the vicious supporting girl always gets eliminated, and the male and female leads always end up with a happy ending. Netizens are especially obsessed with the private lives of the rich. Someone had uploaded a blurry photo online, claiming it was Kevin and Lily. That evening, I had just wrapped a night shoot and gotten into the car. My manager was glued to her phone, brows furrowed, staring at it like she could burn a hole through the screen. I leaned back slightly and closed my eyes. Suddenly, she thrust her phone toward me, pointing at a blurry photo. "Is this you?" I lazily opened my eyes and glanced at it, then paused. The heavily zoomed, pixelated photo was taken under the light rail tracks in Shing City. I had gone there for a shoot. He'd been stuck abroad dealing with a business crisis. It had already been 3 months. Shing City was sweltering. Even the evening breeze by the riverside carried heat. I was wearing an oversized tank top, cooling myself with a tiny fan, stealing a short break. I wanted to call him, but was afraid I'd disturb his work. So instead, I sent him a video of the river, telling him how beautiful it looked and how much fun it was here. I sat on a plastic stool, head down reading my script, sipping on cold milk tea. Suddenly, a shadow fell over the page. I looked up, puzzled. Kevin stood there in a black t-shirt, smiling down at me, the breeze ruffling his slightly wavy hair. At that moment, the train roared past overhead. I jumped up and hugged him. "You're back? I thought you said you'd need more time." He held my waist with one arm, pressed his forehead against mine, smiling. "Didn't someone say she wanted to use magic to bring me back?" Well, magic worked. My ears turned red at that, but I really had missed him. I bit my lip, eyes sparkling with joy, and motioned for him to lower his head. He chuckled and leaned down obediently. I smiled and asked, "Did you miss me?" He nodded with a grin. "Yeah." Hearing that, my eyes curved like crescents, and I kissed the corner of his lips. That blurry photo captured that exact moment. A random bystander must have snapped a shot of the train, and we just happened to be under it. "Yeah," I replied softly and turned to look out the window. Outside, the city glowed, neon lights and traffic reflections danced across the glass. From 17 to 26. I truly believed we'd make it, that we'd get married and have a child. But while I was dreaming about our future, Kevin had already calculated the cost and concluded marrying me wasn't worth it. Chapter 04. That day, Kevin and Lily were trending again. The headline read, CEO spends $3 million to please his goddess. I had just wrapped filming and returned to the villa. After showering, I went to bed. When I woke up, the sky outside was completely dark. I didn't know when Kevin had returned, but he was holding me in his sleep. He slept lightly. When I shifted slightly, his arm tightened around my waist. His chest pressed against my back, and he spoke in a husky voice. Awake? I turned to face him with a gentle smile and nuzzled his neck. Kevin, there's a new drama starting soon. I want the lead role. He stared at me with those deep black eyes. Unreadable. Please? I clung to his lean waist, eyes wide with hope as I looked up at him. Suddenly, he flipped over and pinned me beneath him, staring with a faint smirk. I hesitated, then hooked my arms around his neck and leaned toward his lips. Just about to kiss him, he abruptly sat up, face cold, grabbed his coat, and walked out. Stunned, I sat up and ran after him barefoot, hugging him from behind. What's wrong? Why are you suddenly so mad? Silence filled the large room. I rested my head on his back, confused. Maybe he'd had a bad time with Lily and was taking it out on me. You have nothing to ask me? Huh? He turned around, eyes burning. Do you still love me? Of course I do. Why wouldn't I? I lied without blinking, smiling sweetly to please my sponsor. But he didn't seem happy. He just hugged me tighter, and I could hear his heartbeat. Then, softly, he asked again, really? I'd taken a few days off since the last time I brought it up. Kevin still hadn't given me a clear answer. I frowned, sitting on the couch, staring upstairs. Didn't he say that as long as I didn't ask for love, I could have anything else? And yet, he wouldn't even give me one female lead role, let alone anything more. If he got engaged to Lily in the future, I'd truly be left with nothing. My eyes shifted. Suddenly, I thought of the blurry photo my agent had shown me last time. Whether the shadowy figure in it was Lily, random netizens might not know, but people close to her would. Hey sis, can you help me with something? I grinned and held out my phone to my agent. Don't worry, nothing bad's going to happen. In this industry, I've seen so many couples who once seemed enviable, madly in love on and off camera, only to get torn apart by fame and ambition. Maybe I've finally graduated from the course called growing up. So when Kevin's mother blocked me in the dressing room, I wasn't surprised. Unlike my startled agent and assistant, I simply smiled and waved them out. The elegantly dressed socialite matriarch gave me a once-over and ordered her bodyguard to wait outside. Selena? She called my name with clear disdain as she sat down. Impressive moves. Even I fell for them. I smiled politely. Auntie, I'm afraid I don't understand what you mean. Humph. She sneered, then threw a photo on the table. This woman, isn't that you? You were the one who made sure I'd see it, weren't you? She tapped her ringed finger on the table. Since you called me here, let's get to it. What's your price? Her sharp eyes narrowed. The price for leaving my son, knowing when to stop. I parted my lips slightly and said softly, I want every top-tier resource that can push me to A-list. The room fell silent. She stared coldly, smiling without warmth. You really believe I couldn't erase Selena from the industry by tomorrow? I do, I replied, lips painted in red, smiling. But Kevin wouldn't. He likes me. We've been together since we were 17. No matter what happens, he'd never leave me stranded. Her expression darkened. After a moment, she said coldly, I'll agree, but only if you do something for me in return. I replied without hesitation. All right. You don't even want to know what it is? I tilted my head. Isn't it to help you get Kevin and Lily together? She looked surprised at how quickly I said it, then chuckled. It's refreshing to talk to someone smart. She picked up her handbag with elegance. I'll wait for good news. The Fashion Week flight the day after tomorrow won't wait. I curved my lips. Safe travels, madam. Compared to a woman who only wants love, A woman who wants power and benefits is much more reassuring to someone like her. Chapter 05. Maybe even fate was on my side, because today, Kevin's long-lost brother-like friend returned from overseas. Sam, the one who had chased a girl all the way abroad, then stayed to finish his master's and PhD, was finally back. By the time I arrived, most of the guests had already left. Kevin was lying on the sofa, eyes half shut, cheeks slightly flushed from drinking. Sam stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, speaking on the phone. "Yeah, it's almost done. I'll be home soon." From the sound of it, things had gone well for him. When he hung up and turned around, he adjusted his rimless glasses and smiled. "Long time no see, sis-in-law." I walked over to Kevin and smiled lightly. "Long time indeed. Are you planning to settle back here?" "Yeah, my parents haven't been doing too well these past few years. It's easier to take care of them here." Then he added, "Don't blame Kevin, he only drank a little because I just got back." Back then, I used to hate it when Kevin drank. Every time he did, I got mad. Eventually, he just stopped drinking altogether. Judging by Sam's tone, he had no idea what had happened between us. But after tonight, he would. He helped me carry Kevin out. I smiled. It's normal for old friends to drink after such a long time. "Oh right, doesn't he have a private suite here?" "Better move him there. I'm afraid he might get sick and throw up in the car." This 5-star hotel belonged to Kevin's company. He had his own reserved suite here. All right. We finally got Kevin into bed. I smiled and thanked Sam. After he left, I came back and sat on the edge of the bed, silently looking at Kevin as he lay there. Outside the huge glass window, the city lights flickered in the darkness. The room was quiet. All I could hear was Kevin's steady breathing. His eyes were tightly shut. Hair tousled against his forehead, he looked unusually gentle in sleep. I lowered my eyes and smiled faintly. I wonder, what would the 17-year-old Selena and Kevin think if they saw us now? Silence answered me. Still, I kept talking to myself. They'd probably be devastated. After all, I slowly panned the camera to his sleeping face. It really did seem like we loved each other once. But Kevin, remember, you're the one who gave up on us first. Everything I'm doing now is just to make sure those 9 years of my youth don't look like a joke. I stood up to leave, but just as I turned, Kevin stirred and murmured my name, uneasy in his sleep. "Selena." I looked at him coldly, then reached for the matching couple ring we'd bought in college, slipped it off, and tossed it into the trash can. I walked toward the door. My hand paused briefly on the handle, then I flung it open. Outside stood Lily, wearing the smile of someone who thinks they've won. Her makeup was flawless, and her lips curled smugly. "Selena, didn't I tell you? You two were never going to make it." Back in high school, when she found out I was dating Kevin, she hadn't gotten angry. Instead, she just looked down at me with utter disdain and certainty. "Selena, you guys will never last." Teenage love burns bright and recklessly. I never took her words to heart back then. But now, I had to admit, Lily was right. In our youth, the gap between social classes hadn't felt so visible. But once you enter society, once you see those towering skyscrapers rising before you, the dizziness fades into one thing: desire. Desire for money, power, desire to climb to the top of the pyramid, to look down on the world. "Congrats in advance. Wishing you a long and happy marriage," I said lightly. Stepping aside, she walked past me into the room, smiling sweetly as she passed. "Thanks, and don't worry, you're not invited to the wedding." I left. The business car was already waiting outside. That night, at dawn, I boarded a flight abroad. Chapter 06. The next day, the hashtag Elite Marriage Alliance shot up the trending list. Clicking into it, the top posts were either Kevin's company's official congratulations or statements from Lily's family conglomerate. Immediately after came another trending tag, #see you in car crash. But that one was quickly taken down. By the 4th day, Kevin was recovering well. Dozens of people had already visited the hospital room. Gifts and flower arrangements came in batches and were cleared out in waves. Lying silently in bed with a pale face, he occasionally glanced at his phone, notification after notification flashing with the latest entertainment news about Selena. Sometimes, he'd look toward the door, but the person he was waiting for never came. Sam sat quietly in the chair nearby, sighing subtly. After texting his wife that he'd be home late, he slipped his phone into his pocket. He still clearly remembered that night, how stunned he was when Kevin called him to rush to the hotel. How both families were there, busy discussing engagement plans. How it was Lily, not Selena, lying in Kevin's suite with tear-filled eyes. He froze for a moment, but quickly understood. Selena had personally arranged for Lily to end up in Kevin's bed. Even Sam could guess that much, let alone Kevin. What he couldn't figure out was why. From what he remembered, Kevin and Selena had truly loved each other. The way they looked at one another was full of genuine feeling. How had it all collapsed like this? He remembered how Kevin, eyes red, had made a call, then gone utterly silent, picked up his keys, and stormed off. By the time Sam followed, all he could see was Kevin speeding down the road toward the airport. Kevin had called Selena's phone countless times, and the last time, she finally picked up. But she said nothing. Kevin, eyes bloodshot, shouted into the phone, "Selena, you set me up. How could you do this to me? You put another woman in my bed." His hands trembled on the steering wheel when that call came through. I was already wearing the custom couture gown from the brand and sitting in the luxury car they'd arranged. This was a level of treatment I had never received before. My manager frowned and shook her head, gesturing for me not to provoke Kevin. She feared he'd blacklist me again, but I knew he wouldn't. I'd never be blacklisted again. My voice was soft, gentle. "Kevin, you said you'd never marry me, so I helped you marry the one you wanted. Shouldn't you be happy?" I really didn't get it. Wasn't this the outcome he wanted? There was a long silence before his voice came through, hoarse and choked. "Can we talk? Please, let me come to you. Just talk to me. You can't do this to me." I gave a quiet laugh. "Kevin, what is there left to talk about? There's nothing. What I did was for your sake. You should be thanking me, not blaming me. Don't come." I'm hanging up, because between us, there could never be a real future. The moment Kevin slammed into the guardrail, his mind flashed through countless memories, and at the very end, he saw their first meeting. That time Selena had been tricked into the equipment room, locked in from the outside. Kevin had been in the back of the room and heard the door slam shut. Annoyed, he pulled out his phone to message someone to come unlock it. Then he saw her. Selena didn't cry or panic. She just found a spot near the window where some light filtered through. Calmly, she sat down and pulled out a vocabulary book from her pocket to study. Kevin had been watching her with crossed arms, thinking she was oddly composed until a rustling sound startled him. Looking down, his soul nearly left his body. A few dark rats were sniffing their way toward him. Selena looked up at the noise, her eyes dewy and puzzled. She clearly didn't expect anyone else to be there. He panicked, but then heard her softly say, "Don't be scared, just be careful. They bite." Kevin had thought she was joking, but looking at her serious face, he gave up on dignity and shuffled over to sit beside her. She looked up, wide-eyed, meeting his gaze in confusion. In that split second, Kevin saw a girl in a school uniform standing in the light, tilting her head and smiling at him. It was the smile he hadn't seen in a long, long time. Chapter 07. After returning from Fashion Week abroad, I went straight into filming. During that time, Sam came to see me. He stood beneath the tree, brow tightly furrowed, clearly unable to wrap his head around how things between Kevin and me had ended up like this. I kept my eyes on the script. He and Kevin were fundamentally different. Since high school, Sam had chased after one girl. He made up his mind to marry her when he grew up. All these years, his heart had never changed. He had seen how in love Kevin and I used to be, so he just couldn't believe that Kevin didn't love me anymore. Time passed, and the sun began to set. Finally, Sam sighed and looked at me. "You should go see him. Maybe it's all a misunderstanding. You've been together almost 9 years. That kind of love doesn't just disappear." I slowly pulled myself out of the script and looked at him. Resting my chin in my hand, I said out of nowhere, "Do you know what I studied in college?" He nodded slightly. "Business management, Kevin told me once." I gave a little smile. Lately I've been thinking about something I learned back then, a concept called the law of diminishing marginal utility. Do you know what the utility curve looks like? I smiled, raising my hand and mimicking a downward sloping gesture. Picture this, a girl absolutely loves cream puffs. On her way home from work, there's this famous bakery. Every day, she looks forward to rushing in to buy one. Sometimes, when she's really craving them, she buys 2 or 3. She walks home happily, savoring every bite. At first, it felt like bliss. The cream puffs were amazing. But one day, she walks past the same bakery again. What do you think happened this time? I asked him with a faint smile. He frowned, thinking he wasn't stupid, but he said nothing. I lowered my eyes, watching a tiny blade of grass sway in the wind. This time, she didn't rush in with excitement. She stood at the entrance, took one whiff of that once delicious scent, and felt sick. She turned around and left. She never bought another cream puff again. In fact, just the smell now makes her nauseous. When marginal utility hits 0, any added consumption not only fails to bring more joy, it actually takes joy away. Back then, I memorized that curve just to pass a closed book exam. Years later, I realized what they taught us for economics also applies to love. The filming location was in the mountains. A gentle breeze blew, quiet and calm. After a long silence, Sam eventually walked away. I watched his figure disappear into the distance, then quietly turned my gaze back. Just then, the director called for me. I picked up my script and headed over. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe not, but the shoot was happening at Cheong Mountain. The first time I filmed here, I was just an anonymous extra playing a handmaid accompanying the female lead to pray at a temple. Now I was the lead. The entire show rested on my shoulders. After a take where the wind kicked up dust and dirt, I turned slightly, and in the haze, Kevin was there, wearing a white shirt. Just having come from work, he smiled and poked at the fake bruises on my face. "Hey, don't mess up your battle makeup. The director will scold you." He squinted his eyes and smirked. "If he doesn't pick you as the female lead with acting like that, he's got no taste." I quickly slapped a hand over his mouth, eyes wide. "Are you trying to get me killed?" Okay, my bad." Kevin laughed and raised both hands in mock surrender. Sam said, "How could 9 years of love just vanish? But some problems have no solution, and only at the end do you realize you missed a condition, or plugged in the wrong number." The mistake started with the very first line of the equation. Wasted paper, wasted time. How tragic. We were doomed from the beginning, wrong from start to finish. Chapter 08. A few months later, I skyrocketed to fame thanks to a political thriller that went viral. In just a few days, I gained millions of new followers. During this time, I was in the spotlight everywhere. The investors threw a celebration banquet, and at that event, I saw Kevin for the first time in a long while. He looked much thinner, his facial features sharper. A scar from the car accident split one of his eyebrows, making him look even more distant and unapproachable. The director told me to offer a toast to our biggest backer, Kevin. Meeting his gaze, his dark eyes unreadable, I calmly raised my glass and smiled. "Thank you, boss." Kevin downed the drink in one gulp. Eyes locked on me. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Everyone at the table was a shark in their own right, and I could feel their eyes flicking between us. But I didn't care what they thought. No matter what they assumed, it could only benefit me. Being tied to the company's name now, only a fool would object. Later, I excused myself to touch up my makeup. When I came out, Kevin, not at all gentle, pulled me into a private room. He backed me against the doorframe, eyes red. "Selena, I got into a car accident." I looked at him, puzzled, and said nothing. His jaw tightened, eyes full of unhidden grievance. "You never, not even once, came to see me." Hearing that, I reached up and gently touched the scar on his brow, then met his gaze with a smile. "But at the hospital, you had your parents, and your fiancé. What was I supposed to do there?" "This week, I swear, Selena, I'll take care of everything. Just trust me." He gripped my wrist tightly, desperation in his voice. His upturned fox eyes shimmered with emotion. "Once I fix this, let's get married, okay?" I tilted my head, my painted nails tracing slowly across his chest. "Of course not. Didn't you once say we'd never get married?" I watched the smile fade from Kevin's lips, then his face turned pale, realizing I'd quoted his own words back at him. "Selena, that's enough. I should go. Any more of this, and it would be impolite. Later, while I was overseas, news came from home. Kevin and Lily had broken off their engagement. Lily called me in a frenzy. This time, she dropped all her usual elegance and composure, screaming like a madwoman. "Selena, you bitch, what the hell did you do? Everything was going exactly the way I planned. Why did you ruin it? Why?" I held the phone away from my ear, answering in an innocent tone. "Miss Lily, why are you yelling at me? It's not like I was the one engaged to you. I'm abroad. What could I possibly have done? You're losing your mind and blaming the wrong person. It was you. It could only have been you. Our alliance had nothing but benefits. He never would have broken it off if it weren't for you." Her voice turned venomous. "You're not playing fair, Selena." I laughed. "Miss Lily, did we ever make a deal? Did I promise you anything?" She sneered. "Ha, don't think I don't know what you said to his mother that day. You're the one who sent me to his bed. If I tell Kevin everything now, don't think he'll let you off easy." I raised an eyebrow and leaned into the phone mic. "I'll be waiting." Chapter 09. Another winter arrived. After the last scene of the day, Kevin stood under a street lamp as if he couldn't feel a thing, the snow covering him head to toe. My agent frowned, unable to hide her sympathy. "It's snowing like crazy, maybe we should tell him to go home?" I glanced at him coldly as I got into the car. "If he wants to stand there, let him. Ever since he broke off the engagement with Lily, he's been following me around like an obsessed fan. But once you've fallen into a pit, scraped your skin, and finally climbed out, why would you ever jump back in?" That afternoon, after wrapping up, one of the girls in the crew, a bubbly college student, stood under a bare tree, shaking snow off her head every now and then, her eyes always smiling. I was about to ask my agent to let her sit in the trailer to warm up when a boy in a black down jacket and messenger bag appeared in the distance. The girl's eyes lit up. She ran to him and leapt into his arms. I had just stepped out, and the path was nearly empty. The boy held her tight, his eyes full of concern. "Why wait here for me? What if you catch a cold?" The girl giggled. "I was scared you wouldn't find me. I missed you so much. You were gone so long for the competition. I just wanted to see you right away." "All right, I'll take you for hot pot." The boy laughed, kissed her lips, and tucked her hands into his coat pockets. The dim streetlights stretched their intertwined shadows. My eyes followed them involuntarily. "That age is so beautiful. Selena, can we start over?" Kevin's voice came from behind me. It was hoarse, with a trace of a cold. His eyes were red. I looked up at the starless sky and blinked slowly. "I hope this is the last time I have to say it. Don't come back. I really don't love you anymore. All my feelings for you died that night. In the 10 days after you blacklisted me, wrapped in my coat." I stared at him, expressionless, as I stated a fact. Kevin's lips were pale. His eyes turned misty as he looked longingly at the couple disappearing down the road. "We used to be like them too. I'm sorry, Selena." He forced a smile, took a few deep breaths of icy air, and shook his head bitterly. "I think I forgot. The reason I first joined the company was for our future. I fought to gain control of the family business. Even if my parents opposed us, it wouldn't matter. I was always going to marry you. That was my belief when I was 20. But somewhere along the way, I don't know what happened. Sitting in that position, I started to think marrying you wouldn't bring me any benefit. I told myself I should marry someone from a proper family, someone who could elevate the company. Then one day, I realized you didn't love me anymore. You said you did, just to keep me happy, but your eyes no longer sparkled. But how could you not love me, Selena?" His voice cracked into a laugh as a single tear slid down his cheek. "How could we ever stop loving each other?" Snow fell again, heavier this time, filling the sky. I turned and walked away. We met in a scorching summer, fell in love at 17, young, naive, and burning with passion. That love reached its peak the summer we both received the same college admission letter. But unfortunately, before the next summer came, we'd already lost our way. We part in this winter. No more meetings, no need for goodbyes. On high school math tests, multiple choice questions sometimes say, if you're only certain one answer is correct, only select that one. It's the optimal strategy. But many people get greedy. They mark a few extra options, hoping they might be right too. If they guess right, they get 5 points. If they're wrong, they get 0. Gamblers always believe in what if. What if I'm just that lucky? On the ride back, my chest felt like it had been sliced open. Cold air rushed in from every direction. What a pity. I wasn't the lucky one. Then again, maybe I was.